Hey guys, tonight we trudge through a damp curl of London fog, the kind that coats your coat and turns every cobblestone into a moonlit mirror. It is 1893. Gas lamps hiss, and the air is a half and half cocktail of coal smoke and boiled cabbage. You cannot sleep, haven't in days, and honestly, if you keep collecting 3-hour nights, you probably won't survive this decade, let alone this stroll. So before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. Drop a comment with your city and the local time. I love seeing our sleepy little map light up. Now dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. You shuffle past shuttered shopfronts, a milliner's single feathered hat, a tobacconist bragging soothing Egyptian blends, and a bakery window still clouded with bread vapor. London's heartbeat is down to a murmur. Yet one doorway glows ahead, the Somnolence Society's night clinic for disturbed repose. A brass plaque gleams beneath a sputtering lamp. The O in somnolence is shaped like a yawning face. Subtle marketing Victorian edition. Inside Persian carpets swallow your footsteps, and a grandfather clock ticks every 3 seconds, as if even time fears waking the patients. A nurse in dove gray offers settling water chilled to precisely 10 degrees Celsius. Historians still argue whether temperature alone could coax a nervous mind into stillness, or if the Victorians simply loved a precise number. You sign a guest ledger already crowded with desperate loops. Mr. J. Wainwright, afloat on too much tea. Miss Clara Dent hasn't blinked since Monday. One London paper recently estimated that $2,000 clerks now nod off at their desks daily, a mainstream fact if ever there was one. A buttery aroma sneaks down the corridor, lettuce simmering in broth. Yes, lettuce. Your eyebrow hikes to the rafters. The nurse smiles. Dr. Abernathy's lettuce soup. 5 minutes steep, absolutely no salt sodium agitates dreams. This is our quirky tidbit, limp salad as narcotic. Victorian apothecaries stocked laudanum. Yet someone decided that boiled romaine could compete. Corridor lamps glow amber behind frosted glass. Each bulb a polite ember. Adverts line the walls, restful brain powder. Now, laudanum-free. A cherub holding a clock reading 8 O's sharp with the caption, early to bed, early to profit. And a music box promise of sonatas in the key of drowsy. You manage a smirk, Iggy. Key of drowsy sounds like an indie band formed entirely of yawns. Joke number 1. Dr. Horatio Abernathy greets you in a mahogany study piled with medical treatises and, oddly, Wilkie Collins novels. His left hand clutches a spoon coated in opaque green goop. Testing viscosity, he mutters. The thicker the reduction, the deeper the slumber, or so the data hints. He gestures to a dusk blue armchair. As you sink in, springs sigh like old librarians. Abernathy sermonizes about overstimulation telegraphs clacking through night omnibus wheels and the unholy glow of electric lamps. Light is the great arouser, he proclaims, sideburns bristling like startled ferrets. Joke number 2. You briefly imagine ferrets wielding lanterns. He rings a bell. An attendant arrives with a silver tureen carved with what else lettuce leaves. The broth steams, smelling like rainwater filtered through salad. You sip. It tastes green. On the plus side, it's vegan decades before that word exists. Across the room, an upright piano waits sheet music titled Slumberland Nocturne laid open. Soft chords, steady tempo, Abernathy explains. Victorians truly measured pulse against metronome markings, hoping bodies would entrain to music. Yet he admits scholars dispute whether melody itself induces sleep or merely masks factory noise. Heartbeat entrainment or simple ear camouflage, historians still argue. The pianist arrives coattails fluttering like a nervous moth. At his first mellow F major chord, the study's atmosphere dilutes as though someone draped velvet over the sound waves. Your shoulders slacken. Lettuce warmth spreads down your limbs a weighted blanket, worn inside the skin. Joke number 3. Pops up if lettuce can sedate you. Imagine the knockout punch a Caesar salad might deliver. Abernathy dims the lamps further. Shadows pool. Brass instruments on a shelf wink in the firelight. The grandfather clock's deliberate talk nestles between piano chords, forming a cradle for thought. Through the window, a lamplighter extinguishes the last street lamp, a tiny cough of smoke, marking rebellion against modern brightness. City noises ebb until only faint carriage wheels punctuate the hush. Before true drowsiness catches you, Abernathy whispers, "Should dreams grow too vivid, think of something utterly dull." Parliamentary procedure usually works. He places a silk mask embroidered with tiny lettuce leaves into your lap. Naturally, somewhere down the hallway, a patient snores a bumblebee, trapped in a teacup buzzing gently in F major. Your breathing falls into the same rhythm. You can almost forget telegrams and deadlines, those insistent electric filaments stabbing through curtains. Here at foggy London midnight, the Lettuce Clinic offers escape in a bowl and a tune. Whether it succeeds remains bedtime's mystery, but for now you relish the ritual, the sound, the taste, the kindly absurdity. The nurse leads you past an alcove where a brass plaque declares, "Quiet zone, please think dull thoughts." Beneath it sits a tray of pamphlets titled, "The Merits of Counting Ceiling Cracks." A mainstream medical journal recently reported that 2/3 of urban Britons now live under constant artificial illumination thanks to the Metropolitan Gas Act of 1860, a marvel of progress that paradoxically keeps eyelids spring-loaded. Inventors trumpet the age of 24-hour productivity. Ironically, they forget workers need at least 1 hour of unconsciousness to enjoy it. We pause at a display case of alternative remedies. Jade stones to cool brain heat, sachets of hops for nightcaps, and a bottle of Sir Pemberton's sleepy syrup, whose label promises tranquility, but whose ingredient list opium sherry and something called herbal cordial suggests a breakfast cocktail for the daring. The nurse admits it was banned after one gentleman attempted to waltz with the grandfather clock at 3 a.m. Nobody was harmed, save perhaps the clock's dignity. Eyes half shut, you pull the mask over your face. Lettuce scent mingles with mahogany and coal fire. Outside, the fog thickens, muffling even your thoughts. Perhaps, just perhaps, sleep will find you tonight. The lettuce mask warms your cheeks. Yet your mind refuses to sink fully beneath the surface, bobbing like a cork in that soup you just swallowed. The nurse registering the telltale eyelid, flutter of a patient not quite gone, slides a newspaper into your lap as though bedtime reading about society's collective exhaustion might lull you where broth and Bach have faltered. The front page of the Morning Chronicle screams politely in 10-point type A, "City that never sleeps, but not by choice." Below a sketch shows a trio of office clerks collapsed over ledgers, quills still clutched blotting midnight ink across balance sheets. One drools artistically, forming a small map of Australia. You half snort. Joke one cartography by saliva may be the next big Royal Society presentation. You scan the article. It cites a recent survey of Liverpool street firms reporting fully 1/4 of clerks nod off between invoices, prompting managers to install discreet footbells, little tinkling cruelties intended to jolt bodies upright. Mainstream fact acquired. The piece blames the twin scourges of electrified lighting and caffeinated tonics, the latter referring to a booming market of cola nut elixirs, promising zing for ledger kings. Someone clearly mistook buzz for productivity. As piano chords continue down the corridor, soft as suede the newspaper transports you earlier that very afternoon. You picture yourself trudging through the financial district, watching bowler-hatted ranks march into counting houses with the grim cheer of soldiers. A bell rings 8 o'clock. Windows flare white with carbon arc light, bright enough to tan an egg. Inside, young men copy figures under the spectral glow skin, sallow eyes pupilless black like moths, surprised mid-metamorphosis. Historians still argue whether constant illumination truly extended effective working hours or merely shifted daydreams into brighter rooms. Yet employers armed with graphs and optimism lengthened shifts all the same. Your mental stroll turns down Throgmorton Street, where a chemist advertises Dr. Bicknell's revivifying lozenges, guaranteed awake for 72 hours. The chemist's window also displays collapsible desk pillows, quirky tidbit incoming padded leather wedges that clip under the chin so clerks can sleep sitting up without creasing starched collars. The pamphlet claims no boss shall know you slumber. Right, because the gentle wheeze of nose trumpets never gives the game away. Joke 2 lands with the faint buzz of a kazoo. Back in the clinic's dim light, you flip the broadsheet to page 2 letters to the editor. One harried mother writes that her 9-year-old newly smitten with gaslit bedtime reading now lies awake discoursing on Robinson Crusoe until rooster crow. Another correspondent, a railway porter, describes colleagues rolling baggage trolleys over each other's feet just to stave off drowsy tremors. The paper's advice column recommends equal parts warm milk fennel seed and St. John's wort tea. Then sotto voce admits shortages because every insomniac in London has bought the herb into extinction. You glance toward the corridor. The pianist has shifted to a barely there waltz each measure, like a feather drifting through candle smoke. The clinic walls thick as ship's timbers hush the city's clatter. Yet your ears catch a faint rhythmic clang, the early freight line shunting carriages along Bishopsgate. Industrial progress never rests. Why should anyone else? Mainstream Fact 2 sneaks in by the 1890s London's goods depot, processed 1,000 wagons, nightly metal on metal singing lullabies only a hammer could love. Folding the newspaper, you remember witnessing firsthand the so-called luncheon slump. Picture this morning a bank office with windows steamed by breath and tea kettle. At precisely 1 p.m., 40 clerks simultaneously yawned a wave like wind through wheat before drooping sideways onto high stools. Their supervisor, refusing to appear, panicked, merely opened the ledger of disciplinary fines. Joke 3. Nothing accelerates dreamless sleep, quite like the threat of a salary deduction. The article's closing paragraph suggests the epidemic may, in part, be psychosomatic. A fashionable fatigue, as critics call it, bred by columns such as this very one. You muse that reading about sleeplessness to cure sleeplessness feels like drinking coffee to mellow caffeine jitters. Pushing aside the paper, you gaze into the fireplace, embers pulse, slow, steady, inviting imitation. You match your breathing to their hush glow rhythm, yet curiosity itches. The nurse returns to retrieve the newspaper, but you intercept, asking whether any other cities publish similar laments. She nods, producing a clipping from the New York Tribune Manhattan Milliner's work by Electric Dawn, Midnight the New Noon. Atlantic proof that insomnia crosses oceans faster than steamships. The piece claims ladies' hat factories now schedule 2 a.m. deliveries because wide-awake designers think best under moonbeams. Historians still argue whether global insomnia marks progress or pathology. Some hail the era as mankind's liberation from the tyranny of sunset. Others warn humanity simply swapped one tyrant for another, this one wired to generators. The debate flickers like filament bulbs along Regent Street shopfronts, dazzling unstoppable. Your own eyelids sag heavy as ledger books. But before surrendering, you recall a sublime absurdity. Parliament recently considered a bill proposing national dark hours, legislating mandatory lamp extinction from 11 p.m. to 4 a.m. The measure died. Committee members literally fell asleep during debate, perhaps proving its necessity. Quirky tidbit 2 achieved. The clinic clock tock-tock marks 1/4 midnight. Dr. Abernathy reappears with a tray of rest lozenges, peppermint disguising faint lettuce undertones. He confides the confection came after patients refused another bowl of soup. No sense waking them with ladles, he chuckles, handing you 2. You let them melt against your tongue. They taste like summer picnic meats, apothecary shelf, The piano hushes mid-phrase, letting silence bloom. You hear only the distant thrum of blood in your ears, slow and syrupy. Breathing sinks again with ember glow. Another patient in an adjoining room murmurs about counting ceiling cracks, clearly took pamphlet advice to heart. You imagine tomorrow's headlines: miracle lettuce lull, sets, city snoring. Or perhaps clerks rejoice as workplaces install nap o'clock. Fantasies, but pleasant ones. Your head tilts. The chin clips of those desk pillows suddenly seem inspired. Thoughts drift unspooling like ticker tape until only a single image remains. Gas lamps extinguished street by street, a hush cascading across London like nightfall regained. One lamp, then the next, until darkness and blessed dreams belong to everyone again. You cling to that picture, a shared blackout of perfect stillness, and finally feel the mattress beneath you soften into cloud. Your eyelids unstick just long enough for Nurse Mayhew to glide in her shoes, whispering across the carpet like two librarians gossiping about overdue books. She notes your half-dreamy gaze and suggests a little constitutional Victorian code for walking until one is too weary to protest bedtime. You let her guide you through a side door and down a narrower corridor where sconces flicker behind pleated silk shades the color of Earl Grey. The faint aroma of cloves and camphor drifts ahead, as though someone's grandmother is simmering Christmas in a teapot. The passage opens into the clinic's apothecary of oddities. A low-ceilinged chamber packed from parquet floor to stucco cornice, with glass jars, velvet-lined cases, and tin boxes sporting fonts so ornate they give your retinas frilly cravats. Shelves bow under the weight of remedies, some reputable, many ridiculous, all desperate. A brass placard on the lintel reads, "For the rest, hungry and the dream-starved." You step inside. Floorboards croak greeting beneath your slippers. Directly in front of you sits a mahogany counter laden with poppy lozenges, each the size of a farthing, and wrapped in waxed paper printed with scarlet blossoms. Mainstream historical fact: until 1907, Britain's Pharmacy Act allowed low-dose opium in over-the-counter sleep drops, so long as labels suggested moderate use. Moderate, of course, being whatever dosage one could swallow without immediately reciting Greek poetry backward. Joke 1 surfaces ancient bards would weep, knowing their legacy survives as side effects warnings. Beside the lozenges, a pyramid of cobalt blue bottles boasts Runcible's Laudanum. Cordial guaranteed dreamless. The label features a cherub snoozing atop a grandfather clock, drool forming decorative scrollwork. You whistle softly. The bottles clink like tuning forks. Nurse Mayhew, catching your raised brow, whispers, "We lock those after dusk." Too many patrons decide a fourth spoonful feels festive. Historians still argue whether these over-the-counter opiates kindly gifted sleep or quietly kidnapped consciousness. But no consensus has rocked the Royal College of Physicians enough to pry them entirely from shelves. On the opposite wall hangs a parade of lavender-stuffed teddy bears, stitched from deep purple velveteen. Each bear wears a smug satin bow, and tiny metal spectacles, apparently academic bears, sedate more respectably. A cardboard sign promises gentle aroma release through nightly cuddles. You squeeze one. It puffs floral perfume into your nose, neither too strong nor too coy. Quirky tidbit achieved: Victorians invented plush aromatherapy long before influencer-branded weighted blankets. Joke 2 somewhere a modern spa marketing intern just sprouted ghostly sideburns in recognition. You trail fingers along a shelf of ceramic night jars, lidded pots filled with warm beer and nutmeg, an age-old sailor's knockout elixir. Each jar's lid sports holes like a cheese grater. Steam escapes carrying malt sweetness. The nurse explains you place the jar bedside breathing vapors until eyelids surrender. You wonder if it doubles as midnight snack inhaling beer. Seems half the fun of drinking it, half the hangover. Further down, a contraption catches your eye, a penny farthing-sized wheel mounted horizontally, strung with tiny silver chimes. It's labeled Somno Spinner Clockwise for Dreams. counter for naps. The salesman's card beneath it claims rotational melody hypnotizes ocular muscles. Whatever that means. You imagine clerks spinning it until office managers combust from jingling, and there's joke 3. Mainstream fact 2 arrives in powder form. A jar of bromide salts sits under dimmer light, stamped with Department of War surplus insignia. After 1880, potassium bromide often treated overactive nerves in soldiers and insomniacs alike. Some doctors swore by its calming effect, others feared it eclipsed personality entirely. Historians still debate whether bromides soothed minds or merely replaced them with beige wallpaper. Nurse Mayhew invites you to sample a display of celestial cocoa, advertising mild theobromine buzz without the cursed caffeine. She pours a demitasse, and you sip velvety, dusk brown comfort that hugs your tongue while promising not to riot in your bloodstream later. The taste conjures fireside evenings and soft wool blankets. She nods approvingly, explaining the cocoa beans hail from Trinidad estates, famed for moon-dried fermentation. Whether lunar drying exists or is marketing whim remains uncertain. But the label gleams like a promise nonetheless. You wander toward a glass cabinet devoted entirely to ear trumpet muffs. Yes, padded funnels designed to filter out intrusive clangs while amplifying soothing frequencies of a companion's whisper. Each pair resembles a steampunk rabbit's ears. The instruction card cheerily suggests couples share pillow talk at 1/2 normal volume. Romantic if your beloved doesn't mind shouting sweet nothings into Victorian megaphones. Across from the muffs, a wicker basket overflows with dried hot pillows, scent grassy and faintly bitter, a countryside pub folded into linen. Mainstream fact 3 hops better known for beer contain natural sedatives. Monks in Kent once napped among drying racks and woke late for vespers. Brewer monk tardiness inadvertently birthed a folk remedy. A small lectern stands near the rear door supporting a gilt-edged guest book titled Records of Repose. Patients document which concoction finally ushered them to slumberland. You flip to a random page, Miss Beatrice L., 3 lavender bears. At once restful dreams of violet meadows. Another Mr. Rupert G., 1 laudanum cordial, dreamt entire debate about tariffs still tired. The contradictions amuse. Sleep's cure remains as personal as monogrammed hankies. You borrow the provided fountain pen pause, decide to leave your line blank until morning confidence, after all, is best forged in REM cycles. Before leaving the chamber, Nurse Mayhew draws your attention to a brass plaque quoting the clinic's founder. Within these walls, we fight fatigue with gentle arms, herbs. Hush and hope. You feel that trio cling to your coat like faint perfume. She dims the wall sconces, further ushering you back toward your room. The apothecaries' fragrances trail behind weaving lavender and cocoa into a soft, invisible shawl draped across your shoulders as you exit. Mayhew chuckles, recalling how one gentleman attempted to combine every remedy at once: lavender bear under one arm, hot pillow under the other, laudanum, cordial in pocket, bromide salt sprinkled like sugar on his cocoa. He slept for 36 hours straight, missed 2 weddings, his own included, and woke refreshed, but single. Joke 4, an accidental honeymoon for one. Corridor air feels cooler, emptier, the clinic's hush returning like a slow tide. You realize the apothecary was loud in its own quiet way. Labels, chattering scents, conversing memories, leafing open jars. Back in your room, the piano resumes, this time a cradle-slow arpeggio gliding like swan feathers across a still lake. You slip beneath covers, lavender residue sweet on fingertips, and sense sleep circling you the way cats pad clockwise before settling. Yet curiosity flickers once more. Historians still argue whether scent-based therapies truly acted on neurochemistry or merely served as ritual signals telling brains the performance of rest had begun. Perhaps intention is itself a sedative. Pillow adjusts, heartbeat slows, and even the ferret lanterns from earlier jokes seem curled up in their burrows for the night. The apothecary door clicks shut somewhere down the hall. Bottles, bears, and bromides stand sentinel in musty semi-darkness, waiting to test another sleepless hopeful. But you, aromatic and pleasantly woozy, need no further catalog of curiosities, only that lullaby in F major, the memory of poppy flower wrappers, crinkling like distant campfires, and the certainty that sometimes absurdity itself, lavender spectacles, and all can be the straightest path to dreams. Sleep tiptoes away again when a waft of vegetal steam seeps beneath your door, coaxing your eyelids apart like two reluctant stage curtains. It seems the kitchen brigade is back at their cauldrons, brewing another batch of London's strangest consommé. You swing your legs to the floorboards cool, but no longer bone-aching, and follow the aromatic breadcrumb trail down a back stairwell lined with framed etchings of somnolent saints. One depicts Saint Dymphna reclining on a hay bale halo, tilted as if even holiness nods off mid-prayer. You murmur a greeting, half hoping she'll bless this expedition. The stair treads creak in polite succession. Creak. Hush, creak, hush. Until you emerge into the scullery, a cavern of copper pots glowing like sunrise caught in metal. 3 stock pots the size of baptismal fonts simmer on coal stoves, each crowned with a jaunty bouquet of wilted lettuce leaves. A cook in starched white sleeves lifts a ladle. Green broth dribbles back in a thin ribbon. He catches your startled expression, and Grin's voice, hushed so as not to disturb the soup, apparently broth is a light sleeper too. Joke 1 slides across the countertop. Dr. Abernathy stands nearby, sleeves rolled, spectacles fogged by steam. He waves you over to a chalkboard scrawled with looping script doctrine of Lutetium. According to the good doctor, gently heated lettuce releases a vapor-borne compound he calls Lutetium. Essentially the plant's nighty-night handshake. You note the term resembles lacticarium, the 19th century medical extract derived from lettuce sap, mainstream fact secured. Pharmacists of the day often dried the milky sap into cakes and sold it as lettuce opium, though its potency remained lukewarm at best. A bit like expecting a lullaby from a kazoo, Abernathy insists. His method coaxes more compound out than any pharmacy press could dream. He taps the formula twice, with chalk for emphasis. Leaf age plus 5-minute simmer, pulse 0 salt. Maximum tranquil potency. You ask why no seasoning. He answers deadpan salt stirs the blood. You picture salt grains brandishing tiny sabers inside your arteries. Joke 2 duels politely with that image. Steam cloaks the room like a misty greenhouse. Abernathy hands you a porcelain demitasse. The broth within glows murky emerald, tiny ribbons of leaf adrift like submarine confetti. Sip 1 tastes faintly grassy, almost sweet, a countryside breeze trapped in teapot confines. The warmth spreads down your throat, pooling somewhere behind the sternum with a softly insistent shh, shh. At a nearby work table, 2 younger assistants weigh lettuce bunches on brass scales, trimming stems with near-surgical precision. One complains that improper ratios ruined last night's brew. Patrons reported lucid dreams featuring rampant garden gnomes. Quirky tidbits secured, evidently subpar concentration, leads to horticultural chaos in Remland. The other assistant jots notes labeled gnome threshold. You decide science is at heart an endless ledger of bizarre boundaries. A wicker basket holds heads of Lactuca virosa, a variety known colloquially as bitter lettuce. Mainstream fact 2 apothecaries favored this cultivar for higher lactucarium content. Yet Abernathy, ever the crusading gourmand, blends sweet romaine crisp, cuss even frilly oak leaf in what he calls the bouquet garni of bedtime. He believes flavor must entice. Nothing kills compliance like swamp juice. Historians still argue whether palatability improves medicinal outcomes or simply encourages bigger servings. You ask how often the doctrine succeeds. Abernathy gestures to a slate tally. Last 30, the patient's uninterrupted sleep hours. Chalk marks vary, but several stretch from midnight to dawn, respectable numbers in any age. Some minds, he sighs, are like locked clocks. Lettuce merely oils the gears. Others are cuckoos. Nothing keeps them shut. He skips a look at you, half-wink, hidden in steam. The cook clangs a ladle against pot rim, announcing the broth has reached dreaming temperature. Everyone quiets. A row of teacups, more than cups, less than bowls, stands ready on a pine trestle. You and the staff move in silent ballet, ladle pour pass sip. The ceremony feels almost monastic. Each swirl of steam is a murmured psalm. Joke 3 materializes when you imagine a chorus of Benedictine monks chanting Romain Romain in plainsong. Walls bead with condensation. Droplets travel down tiles like sleepy snails. Abernathy breaks the hush, sharing a letter from a chemist in Edinburgh, who theorizes lutetium is nothing more than mild fructose, plus comforting ritual. Another colleague in Paris counters that trace alkaloids indeed act on neural pathways. Historians still argue whether lettuce calms through chemistry or choreography, and your own experience tonight straddles both arguments. Taste bud placebo perhaps, but also a heat that seems to untie muscle knots with velvet fingers. Outside the scullery's small window, fog dense as unshaken milk swirls under moonlight. You sense London's restless city core rising and falling, like a dozing leviathan unaware that somewhere in its belly, folks are sipping vegetable lullabies by candle glow. Abernathy returns the pot lids, sealing vapors for the next round. He invites you to join a short lecture he's giving tomorrow afternoon, The Somatic Poetry of Salad. You almost accept, but a massive yawn hijacks your reply. Evidently, the doctrine is working. He chuckles. Best RSVP after a nap? Yes. Before leaving the kitchen, you notice a small copper humidifier bubbling away on a side burner. Abernathy explains they infuse the clinic's sleeping quarters with diluted lutetium vapor overnight. Olfactory reinforcement, he says. Nurse Mayhew adds that patients sometimes wake smelling faintly of gardens, which beats waking, reeking of camphor, or worse, coal soot. You climb the stairs, Demitas, still in hand, warmth trailing up your esophagus. Thoughts drift toward green fields striped with moonlit rows of lettuce. Farmers, according to a fleeting memory of some periodical, began harvesting by lamplight. To meet insomnia, demand night shift agriculture for the sleepless city. The image of glowworm-lit furrows makes your smile sag. If nothing else, insomniacs keep the entire supply chain employed. Re-entering your chamber, you catch faint piano again, an A minor progression, so soft it feels subaquatic. The broth eases onto the bedside table. You slide under covers, letting residual spinach-tinted warmth seep through cartilage and marrow. Your breathing, once a staccato telegraph, lengthens into telegraph poles, spaced miles apart. One last ripple of consciousness wonders what if the cure is not lettuce or lullaby, but the very fact that Victorians are willing to rearrange their universe soup pots, chiming wheels, lavender bears, just to tuck each other in. The restless world briefly conspires in kindness. It is a comforting idea, and kindness itself may be the most soporific drug on offer. As that thought dims, you notice candle flame shadows wobbling against the ceiling, choreographing slow leaf shapes. They sway left, right, then blur as lashes seal. Somewhere, a ladle knocks a pot, distant thunder of a kitchen, handing off its lull to night air. Lettuce latent with dream has done its work, and you glide toward the hush inside its green embrace. A muffled knock jars you from lettuce-laced limbo. 2 sharp taps, 1 genteel cough, the universal code for kitchen tour, if you please. Nurse Mayhew ushers you down a service corridor wallpapered in cream and sage stripes, so demure even the stripes whisper pardon me when you brush a sleeve. The air shifts from lavender hush to buttery warmth, spiced with mace, and yes, another vegetal undercurrent, deeper than Abernathy's earlier brew. Somewhere below, copper lids rattle like distant cymbals at a half-remembered concert. Round a corner, you descend into the grand kitchen annex, reserved exclusively for society ladies' midnight nerves. This is no humble scullery. Chandeliers of cut glass drip soft candlelight onto marble counters. Three uniformed footmen stand at attention while a chef sporting a mustache of imperial proportions orchestrates the scene with a long wooden spoon that doubles as conductor's baton. His waistcoat buttons strain heroically against a five-course past. Silver tureens parade along a refectory table, each tagged for delivery: Lady Haversham, mild vertigo; Viscountess Pevensey, unidentifiable agitation; Duchess of Marlborough. Night terrors involving opera tickets. You marvel that aristocratic anxieties arrive with such precise labeling, like dress boxes from Harrods. Joke 1 rises. Imagine a butler announcing, "Your 2 a.m. dread madame," with compliments of the chef. The head cook, Monsieur Beaumarchais, beckons you to the largest cauldron. Steam billows carrying scents of lettuce fennel and surprise white wine. He explains that upper crust constitutions require a hint of refinement. In other words, even their sedatives must sparkle like ballroom chandeliers. Mainstream historical fact lands here. Victorian cookbooks indeed recommend beef tea and wine-fortified broths for invalids claiming protein, and spirits help restore gentle vigor. Beaumarchais sprinkles something glittering across the surface edible gold leaf, thin as dragonfly wings. A dash of sunrise, he whispers eyes alight. Quirky tidbits secured fashionable hostesses once served guests. Consommé shot through with 24-karat flakes, convinced opulence soothed nerves faster than opiates. You watch them swirl into invisible ribbons, knowing tomorrow's chamber pots will sparkle like treasure chests. A footman produces crystal vials of essence of lettuce sap lacticarium and adds 3 measured drops to each tureen. The staff calls it liquid lull. Historians still argue whether these microdoses had genuine pharmacological bite or merely bestowed the comfort of scientific ritual, yet orders keep flooding in from Belgravia. Apparently, Insomnia loves a posh postcode. While you observe a scullery maid wheels in crates of produce, pale butter lettuce for delicate palates, frisée for adventurous dreamers, and sturdy romaine hearts, destined for the Duchess of Marlborough's opera nightmares. She sets them beside jars of ground nutmeg and whisper-labeled bottles elixir of poppy seed essence of valerian nerve vinegar. You realize the cookbook of dreams resembles a spice rack for consciousness itself. Beaumarchais lifts a tasting spoon to your lips. The broth is velvet, lightly sweet with grape finishing on a crisp fennel breeze. Sleepy warmth drapes over your shoulders like a fur stole. He winks, confiding that ladies prefer soup to pills. Chewing is gauche after midnight, but sipping feels vaguely poetic. Joke 2 flutters chewable insomnia tablets would never pair with silk gloves. Crystal carriage clocks line a shelf, each chiming quarter hours with a porcelain whisper. Timing matters. Society demands their dreams be fashionable as well. One footman consults a ledger listing the precise minute each bowl must leave, so its lutetium peak aligns with the lady's bedtime waltz into linen sheets. Logistics rival train schedules. You picture a conductor blowing whistle on platform pillow. Your gaze lands on a silver tray piled with soporific macarons, delicate discs, tinted pastel green. Chef admits they contain microscopic amounts of bromide, just enough chill to turn gossip into mumble. Macarons as tranquilizer darts. You pocket one for scientific purposes? The almond fragrance promises amity even between rival duchesses. In the corner, a junior cook hand cranks a small air pump connected to bellows beneath a rosewood box. Curiosity piqued, you lift the lid. Tiny reeds vibrate to expel subaudible lullaby frequencies into the room. Think music you feel more than hear. He boasts that the Duchess of Bedford swears by it. Her corgis fall asleep mid-yip. Joke 3 percolates canine endorsement may soon grace advertisements. Approved by 12 out of 12 snoring corgis. A telegram crackles in on the wall receiver stop. Lady Worley requests extra dash. Bitters stop. Cannot bear sweetness stop. Beaumarchais sighs, adding gentian tincture to her portion. He mutters that some patrons crave bitter to prove moral fiber, others sweet because life already tastes like shoe polish. Mainstream fact 2 arrives. Victorians categorized ailments as nervous excitement or nervous exhaustion, prescribing stimulant or sedative. Accordingly, often in the same household, resulting in pantry shelves that looked like dueling apothecaries. Delivery time approaches. Footmen encase tureens in quilted carriers that look like sleeping bags for royal porridge. One slips on kidskin gloves to shield from simmer heat, a nod to both temperature and etiquette. The procession forms first footman, second footman scullery maid, with spare napkins should a tremor splash precious bullion onto Aubusson carpet. You're invited to trail behind. Upstairs halls exude velvet silence. Doors glide open to reveal boudoirs bathed in candle glow. You glimpse a lady propped on pillows, reading household words ringlets, casting serpentine shadows. She accepts her bowl with grateful nod. Moments later, eyelids droop as though invisibly tugged by marionette strings. Another door cracks, revealing a harp strings still quivering from pre-sleep arpeggios, its owner already surrendered to dreams, perfumed by gold-flecked broth. Historians still argue whether ritual silver spoons, harp candlelight, matters more than chemistry, but evidence plays out before your eyes. Each lady exhales tension. The instant tureen's lid lifts well before first sip. Expectation, perhaps, is the most powerful ingredient. You retreat to the service stair, suddenly longing for plainer quarters. No chandeliers, no gold leaf. Just that earthy lettuce hug. At the landing, a kitchen boy offers you a tin cup of staff broth. Same recipe, minus luxury trimmings. It tastes simpler, homier, like whispers, beside a coal grate. You favor it if only because no one expects you to critique bullion size. Descending again, you pause by a notice board covered in hand-drawn caricatures of insomniac aristocrats, tasteful enough not to get anyone sacked, but pointed. One sketch shows a duke-wearing nightcap, shaped like giant lettuce head, captioned, "Salad days are sleepless." The staff's humor glows in these halls, a pressure valve for endless demands. Back in the main kitchen, Beaumarchais logs each delivery's departure time, nodding with general satisfaction. A city may roar, he says, wiping steam from mustache tips, but a well-stirred broth can hush its queens. He offers you a small vial of lactocarium for emergencies, but you pat your pocket. Macaron already awaits that job. You leave through a side corridor, footsteps softened by delirious carpet roses. Liveried porters divert balancing trays toward yet another wing of craving hearts. Even within these hushed walls, the campaign against wakefulness resembles a tidy war cook's. Forging edible ammunition, footmen marching supply lines, society ladies surrendering with silken sighs. Victory tonight belongs to lettuce and gold, an unlikely alliance, sparkling under moonlit cornices. At your chamber door, the piano resumes slower, softer, as though aware candles upstairs gutter low. You slip inside. Broth memories linger on your palate, followed by faint crunch of almond macaron. Between molars, luxury's lull, distilled to bite-sized resignation. Pillow receives your head. Quilt settles like diplomatic treaty. Dreams flutter near, coaxed by gilded vapors, and the knowledge that somewhere in grand drawing rooms, chandeliers glitter to an audience of sleeping silhouettes. When you next surface from that gold-flecked haze, a faint ticking sets your ears twitching sharp, deliberate too precise for the grandfather clock. Nurse Mayhew reappears, not with soup or lavender bears, but with a clipboard and the gentle urgency of someone collecting census data on yawns. Dr. Abernathy requests your participation in tonight's observational trial, she whispers, as though the very phrase might fracture a dozing duchess 2 floors up. Your assent is a slow nod. Scientific service does feel nobler than drooling into linen. The nurse guides you along a torchlit passage seldom traveled by highborn sleepers. Walls tighten, paint fades to a utilitarian gray, the color of lukewarm porridge. A corridor clearly designed by someone who worried ornament might spike heart rate. At its end swings a set of double doors, emblazoned physiological laboratory silence, please. The silence is underlined twice, as though a third underline might disturb the ether. Inside, brass instruments gleam beneath hooded lamps. A long slate table hosts glass tubing stopwatches and something resembling an overgrown stethoscope mated with a bicycle pump. White-coated assistants' hair slicked and side parts crisp hustle between data sheets and tepid bowls of lettuce soup cooling on marble slabs. Mainstream historical fact arrives on cue by 1890. Hospitals like St. Thomas's had begun installing sphygmographs, ink-tracing gadgets, that recorded pulse waves on smoked paper, part of medicine's new obsession with turning bodies into bar graphs. You're ushered to a high-backed chair fitted with adjustable leather straps. Not for restraint, you're promised merely posture consistency. A sphygmograph cuff circles your wrist. A thin lever rests over the radial artery, its tip poised to scribble heartbeat hieroglyphs onto a strip of lamp-black paper. Joke 1 pops you feel like a telegraph wire about to confess secrets in Morse code. Dr. Abernathy materializes glasses freshly wiped, brandishing a thermometer the length of an orchestral baton. We record oral dermal and emotional temperatures, he says, twinkle intact. Emotional temperature, apparently, is plotted on a 4-point scale ranging from placid cow to rampaging weasel. You privately hope for bovine. An attendant places before you a china cup of tepid salad soup. No steaming plume, just body warm, lest heat itself interfere with data. This room is an ode to lukewarm moderation. Clock's muffled footfalls cushioned, even the lamps glow as though half asleep. You sip. The taste is subtler than earlier batches, more like dewy lawn in liquid form. The assistant notes down, participant ingests 40 ml EU047. If bureaucracy could tuck folks in, Britain would be a nation of narcoleptics. As the lettuce infusion meanders past taste buds, an assistant taps a metronome set to 60 BPM, one gentle click per second, encouraging your heart to adopt bureaucratic punctuality. Abernathy watches the smoked paper spool pulse, peaks forming tidy anthills. He then nods to a colleague, who whispers a math problem in your ear, 7-digit long division designed to spike vigilance. Sure enough, the anthills jump into Alps. Historians still argue whether cognitive effort or emotional irritation drives such spikes, but your brow furrows either way. Phase 2 begins. The metronome is replaced by a soft violin drone played through a phonograph horn wrapped in velvet. To dampen tinny overtones, quirky tidbit for the night. The music is so muted, it feels like a memory rather than sound, each note dissolving before fully born. Your pulse hills flatten to gentle dunes. Abernathy beams. Assistants nod pencils, twitch like satisfied sparrows. Joke 2 somewhere a composer would be horrified to learn his opus now tops the charts of songs most likely to be slept through. Yet royalties are royalties. Next, they dim the lamps by a fraction, no abrupt blackouts. Abruptness breeds adrenaline. The tepid soup, now half gone, radiates grassy reassurance from stomach lining to earlobes. Abernathy introduces a galvanic skin response coil, 2 brass plates held between fingers to measure perspiration. He murmurs that nervous sweat is a saboteur of slumber-slicking palms, just when pillowcases crave dry decorum. A colleague enters carrying a cage draped with cloth. You brace for laboratory mice, perhaps a canary. Instead, he unveils a docile tortoise, wearing a satin ribbon the control specimen. Victorian physiologists, short on ethics boards, sometimes monitored animals to demonstrate calm baselines. The tortoise blinks, once unhurried, already a Zen master in a shell bungalow. Abernathy compares its heartbeat projected via tiny rubber bladder and stethophone to yours, remarking that reptiles make exemplary models of minimalist cardiovascular ambition. Joke 3 surfaces if only corporate clerks could issue quarterly reports at tortoise speed. Another assistant wafts diluted lutetium vapor toward you, tracking the exact second your eyelids droop to half-mast. On the smoked paper, pulse dips further. On the perspiration coil, readings flatten like a pacifist souffle. Data points bloom across clipboards. Excitement among staff remains dutifully hushed, as though cheers might jar the graph. Abernathy dictates observations. Subject displays marked decline in sympathetic tone at minute 12 post-ingestion. Ocular flutter suggests stage 1 descent. You wonder whether future generations will revisit these notes. Bemused that lettuce took center stage in physiology's opening night. Yet the discipline of sleep science is newborn. Each ink trace you provide could feed debates for decades. Still, a skeptic's voice in your head asks if this parade of measuring gears merely validates what any grandmother knows: warm soup, soft music, dim light done. Historians still argue whether Victorian laboratories advanced sleep therapy or simply dressed common sense in starch and Latin. But Abernathy's earnest fervor renders cynicism weightless. Pulse settled. You slide toward drowsy equilibrium, somewhere between placid cow and hammock-happy sloth. Abernathy orders final metrics, then gently releases straps. An assistant hands you a commemorative ribbon, stamped Clinical Dream Pioneer. You chuckle. The ribbon will make a dashing bookmark for tomorrow's newspaper nap editorials. Before you leave, the doctor presents a small vial labeled Lutetium Extract Research Grade. A souvenir, he whispers. You envision a black market rise of salad smugglers stuffing romaine into valises like contraband corsets. London's underworld, armed with iceberg heads and pipettes, joke 4 sneaks in free of charge. Lab doors open onto corridor calm. Nurse Mayhew leads you back praising your exemplary pulse graphs. Apparently, you'll headline tomorrow's luncheon lecture. She folds your smoked paper strip into an envelope your heartbeat's autograph signed in soot. En route, you pass a framed notice quoting Sir John Lubbock. Rest is not idleness. Fitting words for a nation that times repose with factory precision. Lamps dwindle as you near your room. Once again, the piano greets you now, a lullaby so slow each chord seems to fall asleep before striking the next. You pocket the vial ribbon fluttering like pale moth. Pillow remembers you molding instantly to skull's familiar curve. Thoughts fizz then fade, replaced by the tortoise's unhurried blink, by smoked paper hills, flattening into plains, by lukewarm soup cradled at your core. Somewhere lab assistants tally figures deep into night, yet you have given enough numbers for one lifetime. In the hush data sheets, rustle like distant reeds, and sleep steady, substantiated, scientifically endorsed slips its cool hand into yours. Morning leaks through lace curtains far earlier than you'd prefer, but Dr. Abernathy, ever the evangelist, insists. Fresh air will seal last night's somnolent success. He dispatches you to stretch your legs about the Strand, a district where bill posters shout in colored inks, and every lamppost seems to advertise a different form of escapism. By twilight, you find yourself outside the Lyceum Music Hall marquee, dim to half strength in compliance with the new Midnight Quiet Ordinance of 1894. Mainstream fact London's Metropolitan Police Act amendments really did restrict after-hours noise, right down to brass instruments. A placard on the door reads, "Attention patrons." Tonight's performance employs silent cornets and gestural tambourines. Refunds unavailable. You arch a brow. Silent cornets sound a lot like imaginary friends. Inside the house still hums softly, packed with theatergoers, curious whether melody can survive a muzzle. The stage curtain, a brocade panorama of Elysian fields, ripples as the orchestra files in, wielding instruments swaddled in velvet sacks. Trumpets resemble newborn infants bundled against a draft. Joke 1 lands somewhere backstage. A trombone is swaddled so tightly, it's developing abandonment issues. You slip into a balcony seat beside a stout gentleman twirling a waxed mustache. He explains that last Saturday, the local constable issued 3 citations when the pit's brass finale jolted a nearby insomniac senator from his lettuce-induced doze. That senator, incensed and sleepless, pushed through an emergency hush clause. Historians still argue whether the clause aimed to protect public rest or simply pandered to influential light sleepers. But tonight's program bears its brunt. Gaslights dim. A hush falls heavy as upholstery. The conductor raises a baton tipped with white feathers. Apparently, even batons must whisper now. At his cue, the muted orchestra launches into an almost soundless overture. Violins play sotto voce, percussionists strike drumheads with felt-wrapped fingertips, and the trumpeters mime. Lips buzz inside velvet valves depress, but what emerges is the faintest moth cough of melody. Audience members lean forward, faces scrunched like they've misplaced spectacles. You catch maybe 3 notes. The rest are left to collective imagination. Quirky tidbit arrives center stage. The theater has hired caption dancers who translate musical lines into sweeping arm gestures, allowing patrons to see the crescendos they cannot fully hear. When a phantom trumpet solo hits its high C, the dancer twirls a silk ribbon skyward. The crowd gasps appreciatively, commending music by proxy. Joke 2 bubbles. Congratulations, you are now attending Britain's first air trumpet recital. Tickets cost extra for the privilege of hearing nothing. Halfway through Act 1, a restless percussionist rebels 3 crisp strikes of cymbals slice the hush. Gasps ripple. An usher darts forward brandishing a placard reading "SH" like a traffic warden with stage directions. The offender bows, claps cymbals softly once more, an audible apology. Even rebellion here is polite enough to curtsy. Between scenes, the mustached gentleman whispers rumor of a music hall quiet revolt. Performers across the West End plan to protest by staging a grand silent march. Hundreds of brass players processing down Piccadilly armed only with mouthpieces, blowing noiselessly to show what the city will miss. Their banner reportedly reads, "Without our noise, your night is just silence." Joke 3 sprouts. Perhaps lettuce broth distributors sponsor the event? Silence boosts soup sales splendidly. The curtain rises on Act 2, a comedic number titled "Tiptoe Through Trafalgar." Dancers high kick in calfskin slippers fitted with cotton soles. They land like cats on velvet. One ballerina's shoe squeaks and earns her a scandalized glare from the conductor. Still, the piece charms. Your brain fills in missing oompahs, a kind of auditory Mad Libs. You realize absence can be its own instrument. Expectation writes melodies better than any composer. Historians still argue whether these enforced silences birthed new creative forms or merely frustrated paying crowds. But tonight's audience seems oddly satisfied, giggling at pantomimed trombone slides. Near finale time, the conductor risks a real flourish. He signals the trumpets to unzip their velvet straitjackets for a single glorious chord. Brass blazes forth bright golden. Impossible to mistake, then cuts off instantly as house lights plummet. The shockwave of sound hangs in the rafters like startled pigeons. Hearts thump. You sense every lettuce soup patient within 5 blocks shooting upright in bed. Ushers freeze, debating whether to applaud or issue citations. Finally, the audience erupts in whispers and flutter hand applause, the Victorian version of a scream. Outside, you join the exiting crowd. Street lamps glow through thin mist, and vendors hawk quiet caramel corn guaranteed crunch-free. A pamphleteer presses a broadsheet into your hand. Trumpet muzzles ruin art, an open letter. The author argues late-night cacophony is the city's pulse, not its peril. You weigh it against your own craving for hush and decide the debate is like choosing between blankets' thick wool warmth or crisp linen, cool each perfect until you remember the other exists. A constable near the curb pockets his notebook after clocking the dispersed crowd. He tells a colleague, "No noise, no trouble." Yet as he walks off, you catch him humming the overture's missing trumpet line, proving melody escapes any gag eventually. You chuckle. Joke 4 bonus, round notes, the human voice remains the one instrument regulators forgot to muzzle. Mid-journey back to the clinic, you detour through Covent Garden. Street buskers have adapted a fiddle player draws her bow without strings, while a drummer taps invisible patterns on thigh and cobble. Passers-by drop coins anyway. Sympathy tips for silent skill. A notice on a lamppost advertises hush harps zithers strung with silk thread to reduce resonance. You imagine bedrooms across London filled with whisper concerts lullabies. You must lean into the sonic equivalent of candle flame. By the time clinic lamps come into view, you appreciate quiet not as absence, but as sculpted space where small sounds gleam. Piano chords greet you delicate, yet unshackled by ordinance. Within these walls, Abernathy secured exemption under medical acoustic license. Lucky man. You slip upstairs, brochure still in pocket, its manifesto echoing. Will the quiet revolt conquer city council? Will lettuce broth sales plummet if brass returns uncertain? Yet tonight proved a truth even throttled. Music finds new shapes, and the mind, ever resourceful, fills silence with imagined fanfares. Sometimes the lull is not the lack of noise, but the choice of what to hear. Blanket pulled you hum that lone illicit chord. It rings once more, then folds into hush like an obedient swan. Sleep edges closer, unsure whether to march with trumpets or tiptoe with dancers, but eager to claim the stage either way. You step out of the clinic just after 9, roused by a neatly penned card from Lady Sybil Fairfax's demonstration of the parlor piano prescription 10 o'clock sharp. Your presence, and if convenient, your pulse. Curiosity, plus Dr. Abernathy's conspiratorial wink, puts you in a hansom cab rattling toward Grosvenor Square. The horse keeps a gentle 4-beat. You wonder whether equine metronomes will headline the next medical paper. Joke 1 trots beside the cab if London ever runs out of pianists. Rhythmic horses will be recruited for lullaby duty. Lady Sybil's townhouse greets you with ionic columns, washed in gas lamp gold, and a butler whose eyebrows alone could hush a riot. Inside, crimson carpets swallow footfalls. A maid collects coats in absolute silence, as though the rustle of wool might jolt a marquis from Rome. You join a small cluster of invitees. 3 physicians, a Times columnist, and a patent office assessor of nocturnal conveniences in a sandalwood-scented antechamber. The butler parts double doors to reveal the main theater. Sybil's bedchamber, though calling it a chamber, is like calling St. Paul's a tool shed. A canopied 4-poster presides. Wallpaper blooms with lilies silvered by moonglow. At the bed's foot waits a polished Broadwood grand lid propped halfway to keep volume politely muffled. A lace screen shields the pianist, leaving only a black-tail silhouette glowing in candle halo. Sybil drifts in, wearing a dove-gray dressing gown and a lace sleep cap shaped like a clipper under full sail. She greets the assembly, then reclines amid an archipelago of goose-down pillows. A resident physician fastens a barometer-sized sphygmograph to her wrist. Tonight, he whispers, we compare silent cornet evenings with live piano lullabies. Mainstream fact by the 1890s British medical journals already prescribed Field's or Chopin's nocturnes at 60 beats per minute, tidally matching resting pulse. The pianist Mr. Edwin Hollis receives a nod and glides into Field's Nocturne No. 5 pianissimo. Each chord blooms lingers, then dissolves before it can disturb lace. Standing behind a velvet rope, you feel notes settle on your shoulders like warm snow. Candle flames lean toward the sound, gossiping in amber tongues. Moments pass. The physician notes respiration 12 breaths per minute, then 11. Hollis unspools a rolling cradle figure. Even the tassels on the canopy droop. Historians still argue whether harmony itself soothes the autonomic system, or whether the mind simply purrs at predictable repetition. But debate feels academic when eyelids surrender of their own accord. Joke 2, tiptoes through the drapery true luxury, is hiring a pianist to watch you drool on monogrammed linens. Hollis modulates into a whisper-soft waltz. The doctor taps Sybil's pulse against 3/4 time, delighted when heartbeat and downbeat synchronized body coaxed into dance, while its owner naps. Mainstream fact number 2. An 1892 Lancet report recorded diminished night terrors in 8 aristocrats receiving nightly piano therapy sample, tiny confidence, Titanic. A street vendor outside bellows eels a-lee-ve-e-o through an open transom. Hollis counters with a calming arpeggio that blankets the intrusion. Sybil's lashes flutter, yet remain closed. Evidently, the prescription endures eel interference, a valuable data point in any metropolis. Between pieces, a footman lowers lamps by small degrees to mirror Sybil's descent. Another quirky tidbit surfaces: every clock in the townhouse has been packed with cotton to smother ticks. Someone muses how they'll know dawn. The butler replies, "We'll feel it arrive." Joke 3 lounges on a chaise breakfast may be served at sunset because no one heard the hour strike. At minute 40, Hollis sustains a final chord. So filament thin it inhabits memory more than air, then lets it fade into mahogany. The physician signals, triumph pulse down 10 beats breaths. Quiet as moth wings. Guests applaud silently, palms fluttering like butterflies in church. Hollis bows behind the screen, an invisible virtuoso in service to sleep. You retire to a damask drawing room for sherry and subdued chatter. Practitioners debate patenting portable parlor pianists, collapsible keyboards fitted with clockwork fingers. The Times man predicts music boxes calibrated to therapeutic tempos will become the middle-class alternative. You picture omnibus commuters winding boxes beside snoring seatmates, London vibrating with overlapping lullabies, a cacophony of calm. Historians still argue whether the presence of a breathing musician, the subtle rubato, the tiny size creates the magic, or whether a metronomic gramophone could replicate results for pennies. Ritual versus hardware, encore postponed. A Grey Temple doctor describes his newest case, a railway magnate who commissioned a self-playing organ after hearing piano strings capture moonlight and tame nightmares. The machine fills an entire parlor and must be hand-cranked nightly by footmen in shifts, lighthouse keeper fashion. Costs 2,000 guineas plus overtime gloves. The patent office man twinkles at the registration fees. Someone recalls Countess Radcliffe, who required her pianist to match keystrokes to her breathing. If she sighed, tempo slowed. If she snored, it halted altogether. The poor fellow earned a sovereign for every quarter hour until she drifted off profitable on nights free of pheasant suppers. Quirky tidbit number 2 achieved. You ask Hollis whether playing this softly is harder than projecting to concert halls. He smiles. Whispers take more discipline than shouts. Think librarians juggling china. He adds that he practices on felt-muted keys inside an attic wardrobe so neighbors stay oblivious. Apparently, there is a secret society of cupboard pianists. Before the party dissolves, a maid distributes sandalwood favor boxes engraved, "Sleep is the new supper." Inside, each rests a chocolate medallion embossed with a treble clef entwined with a lettuce leaf, branding synergy at its boldest. Clock nears 11. You claim your coat. The butler adds a slim score autographed by Hollis Lullaby in G for insomniac guests. He assures you it pairs nicely with lettuce soup and silent cornets. Outside, air tastes of coal and lilac. Your cabbie hums the overture's absent trumpet line, proof that melody once imagined refuses leashes. Shop windows along Piccadilly toot mechanical pianos with coin slots, 2 pence a nocturne. Joke 4 over quota, but indulged wonders whether future hospitals will run on pennies like public loos. Clinic gates appear. Inside, the resident pianist obliges your request, sight-reading Hollis's gift. The melody 4 hopeful notes and 1 contented sigh feels like sliding into a warm bath. Quilt cocoons you, candle gutters low. Resonance hums in your ribcage long after fingers still. Heartbeat and lullaby waltz beneath velvet night until finally both partners drift away. The next card finds you at breakfast if 2 lavender-scented breaths and half a tepid macaron count as breakfast. A gilt envelope slides under your door. Lord Rivington requests the honor of your presence at this evening's yawn party. Velvet attire encouraged stimulants checked at the door. Curiosity purrs. Besides, your newly acquired lullaby score needs a test audience. By dusk, you're climbing the steps of Rivington House, a Baroque confection perched on Pall Mall facade, glowing the creamy yellow of custard. Left too long in the sun. Inside, hush wrapped in luxury. Footmen speak in whispers, no louder than moth wings. Guests drift along corridors like slow-motion billiard balls, each clad in velvet robes dyed shades of deep seaweed, plum dusk, or inevitably lettuce green. Joke 1 waddles by, you've joined the world's most drowsy peacock parade. A butler with the gait of a soothed swan offers you a satin ribbon to tie over your shoes to subdue heel clicks, he murmurs. Even souls get mufflers tonight. The grand salon beyond is candlelit to twilight. Chandeliers wear gauzy covers so crystal won't glare. A plush ottomans form concentric rings around a low marble table heaped with chamomile-spiked jelly cut into cubes no larger than sugar lumps. The cubes tremble at the slightest exhale, sunlight quivering through them, like captive dawn. Lord Rivington, swathed in indigo velvet emblazoned with silver moons, greets each arrival with a practiced yawn hand, delicately shielding, but never stifling. He believes mainstream historical fact incoming that yawning is infectious sympathy, a theory widely printed in 19th century physiology primers. Guests strive to catch the contagion timing yawns like polite applause. One lady boasts she can trigger a room within 30 seconds. You watch as her jaw hinges theatrically, and indeed a ripple travels outward. Heads tilt, mouths arc, conversation ebbs to a dreamy hum. Footmen circulate with silver trays of the quivering jelly, each cube crowned by a single chamomile bloom. You select one. It slides against your palate, dissolving into floral whisper and sugar lull. Lord Rivington claps softly, chamomile for calm gelatin, for gentle digestion, sugar for sweet dreams. He explains, quoting the latest pamphlet from Dr. Abernathy's own press. Joke 2, nutrition advice from a man wearing pajamas in public feels suspect, but deliciously so. In a corner stands an ornate mahogany hourglass, the height of a schoolchild. Sand-tinted pale green with dried lettuce powder, quirky tidbit secured. When grains finish their 15-minute descent, a page rings a felt-muffled bell, signaling the next ritual, somnolent charades. Participants draw bedtime phrases, turning down sheets, counting sheep, or finding cold side of pillow, and act them out in glacial pantomime. Applause is forbidden. Instead, correct guesses earn a collective sigh. Between rounds, a scholarly-looking gentleman quotes Pliny the Elder on lettuce's soporific virtue, provoking a counterview from a lady in rose velvet, who cites Galen favoring dill seeds. Historians still argue whether ancient texts prove these herbs genuinely sedate or merely symbolize temperance, but the debate itself feels like lullaby in Latin. The room drifts argument settling into pleasant drone. You perch on an ottoman, absorbing textures, velvet brushing wrists, wax scent, mingling with chamomile steam, the gentle snoof of someone failing to suppress a yawn. A discreet string quartet, seated behind a silk screen, saws through a largo so languid you suspect half the players are sleep-bowing. The viola drops one note behind, and no one minds. Imperfection is on theme. Lord Rivington circulates with a yawn tally book, a small ledger in which he records who triggers the most contagions. Top scorers receive crystal nap weights shaped like half-closed eyes. Joke 3, competitive yawning, finally a sport where underachievement is victory. A footman offers dream cards, pale blue slips where guests jot anxieties they hope to shed quarterly earnings. Opera audition unfinished watercolors. Cards slide into a brass brazier, flames faintly perfumed with lavender oil. Smoke curls upward, carrying worries to metaphorical ceiling rafters, or possibly the lungs of the string quartet. Mainstream fact number 2 glides in via a spectacled reverend who notes that temperance societies once promoted gelatin desserts at evening socials to replace brandy-laced puddings. Jelly thus became moral as well as medicinal. He gestures around, satisfied that virtue now jiggles softly on every tray. As hourglass sand nears its end again, Lord Rivington cues the final rite, the collective exhale. Guests arrange on cushions reclining wall to wall, like a cross-section of softly blinking cats. Candles dim until shadows turn liquid. On the count of 3, a whisper count, they release air in long feathered sighs. The sound ripples ceiling cornices, seeming to breathe back. You feel tension peel off ribs like old wallpaper. Someone somewhere begins the first syllable of a lullaby. It dies midair when she forgets the tune and giggles into her wrist. Velvet sleeves flap as a dozen arms float, semaphoring farewell to consciousness. Joke 4 hovers one more yawn, and the entire peerage might fall asleep mid-inheritance. Your own eyelids mimic velvet drapes drawing shut. For a moment, you hover half attendee, half dream, watching Rivington sprinkle powdered chamomile across the candles, causing tiny sparks and a scent burst like meadow at dusk. He raises the tally book, salutes the room's collective score. 4019 yawns a new record, then closes it with a whispery thud. Chimes from the lettuce sand hourglass announce curfew. Footmen shepherd sleepers toward guest rooms outfitted with blackout curtains and pocket watches whose ticks are muffled by cotton batting. You, however, drift toward the exit, having promised Abernathy a debrief before dawn. The foyer's marble floor feels cool through ribbon-swaddled shoes. You untie them, letting souls whisper again. Outside, night air carries residual laughter and a faint whiff of gelatin sugar. A cab awaits driver, reclining, hat-tipped reins slack. Even the horses respect yawn party impact. You climb in seat, plush as velvet robes, and let the city glide by in slow exposure. Blur lamplight streaks, shop signs, yawn neon omnibuses, crawl like yawning beetles. Historians still argue whether such social rituals genuinely improved public sleep, or simply replaced boisterous soirees with equally stimulating novelty. Yet you cannot deny the lead weight settling kindly behind your eyes as chamomile lingers. Ritual chemistry placebo labels matter less than this hush seeping into bone marrow. Back at the clinic, Nurse Mayhew smiles. She smelled chamomile on your coat from 3 paces. She guides you to your room, tucks a fresh lavender bear under your arm, and retrieves the velvet shoe ribbons for laundering. Piano hushes mid-arpeggio, deferring to Jelly's victory. You tumble into bed. Mattress exhales. Mind replays the evening in slow gelatin jiggles. A final yawn ambushes, and you grin, tallying 1 more point for Team Torpor. Chamomile velvet and contagious exhalations weave into a lullaby unscripted by any conductor. Then nothing save breath and darkness as the sand of wakefulness slips silently into dream. A gray dawn creeps in, rudely unvelveting your dream. Dr. Abernathy, flushed with scholarly zeal, presses a broadsheet into your hand before you've fully located your slippers. Headline Council considers curfew for factory whistles. Sleepless masses cheer. Your pulse quickens, not from caffeine but curiosity, and soon you're huddled inside an omnibus trundling east toward the great iron lungs of London industry. Coal soot snowflakes swirl past windows. Every rattle of the carriage feels amplified by a night spent measuring size. You disembark near the Thames, where towering mills cinch the skyline like corsets. At 6 a.m., sharp, a horn balls from Cunningham's textile works. Notes slicing fog like blunt shears. Your shoulders jolt. A dock porter beside you barely blinks ears, apparently leatherized. Mainstream fact by the 1880s steam sirens, timed shifts for upward of 150,000 London laborers. Blasts, carrying 4 miles on still mornings. They also carried straight through bedroom shutters, fraying whatever thread of lettuce broth calm might linger. You follow a trickle of workers into a red brick annex, hosting today's noise mitigation committee, a mixed bag of factory owners, alderman union delegates, and one frazzled clergyman pleading for parish quiet. They assemble around a table littered with brass whistle parts, decibel charts, and a half-eaten meat pie abandoned like evidence. Informal dress code, soot-speckled. You noticeably lavender-scented from Lord Rivington's revels, receive polite but puzzled nods. Chairman Briggsbeard, wider than his ledger, gavels the meeting. Agenda muffling midnight whistles without impeding punctuality. He gestures to a hulking contraption draped in tarpaulin. When assistants yank it free, the first silenced steam whistle prototype, nicknamed the hush horn, emerges a boiler pipe ending in what looks like a brass teapot, smothered by quilt batting. Joke 1 steams up at home. This gadget could double as an alarm clock and breakfast maker too. Whistles 1 kettle. Engineer Miss Matilda Crane, a rarity in waistcoats among waistcoats, demonstrates. She opens a valve. Instead of skull-splitting shriek, the hush horn coughs a breathy whoof reminiscent of an asthmatic owl. Decibel meter wavers at polite conversation. Workers exchange glances audible barely. Reliable questionable. A foreman raises a practical concern. What if shifts change during dense fog? Crane grins and unveils a sleeve of dyed cotton, placed over the exhaust white for dawn, crimson for dusk, violet for emergencies. Colored vapor jets skyward in pastel puffs. Quirky tidbit secured tomorrow's skyline may resemble a giant teapot party. The alderman applauds, though a colorblind machinist worries he will confuse dawn with disaster. Joke 2. Management may soon rate eyesight as a productivity metric. Spectacles or severance, sir. Crane promises an accompanying bell, lower than a church chime but higher than a heart murmur for chromatic ambiguities. Discussion shifts to economics. Owner Cunningham scowls. Every quilt-bound whistle costs £20 not counting dye. Union delegate Mr. Harris counters with worker testimonials of infants jolted awake, lettuce soup wasted when mothers spill bowls mid-blast. He brandishes a petition thick as upholstery batting. Historians still argue whether such petitions reflected genuine mass unrest or savvy union leverage in wage talks, but the signatures are inked, the grievances tangible. Just then, a rival mill tests its own prototype outside sans quilt, merely a narrower vent. The resulting howl resembles a brass band falling down a well. Windows rattle. The clergyman clutches his collar as pigeons evacuate rooftop seats. Joke 3 lurches into being cathedral sermons, might soon feature subtitles for post-whistle hearing loss. Coffee arrives tar-black stimulant antithetical to the committee's mission. You decline recalling chamomile's reign mere hours ago. Instead, you examine decibel charts inked by Abernathy's colleagues. Lettuce broth lowers heart rate 5 beats. Factory whistles spike at 15. Arithmetic of insomnia is brutal. Miss Crane proposes steam pressure timers, releasing whistles only at shift start, never at ends. Workers murmur without quitting blast. How mark freedom? A compromise surfaces. Outgoing shifts will read colored steam and rejoice visually. One wag suggests rainbow plumes for payday. Management does not laugh. Around 10, a messenger bursts in waving fresh statistics. Night work complaints up 23% since electrified looms extended hours, another mainstream fact. Gas lamps made nights noisy. Dynamos make them eternal. Aldermen scribble, murmuring about civic tranquility. Yet Cunningham retorts, productivity climbs alongside noise. London cloth now competes with Manchester Liverpool. Commerce as always hums at fortissimo. Debate grows heated until someone wheels in refreshments. Trays of soundproof sandwiches, bread crusts removed, so chewing is noiseless. Joke 4. A polite extra suggests future etiquette guides will ban crunchy pickles after dusk. Amid sandwiches, you spot a pamphlet from Abernathy, tucked in a briefcase, Sleep Hygiene for Industrial Cities. He argues for staggered whistle timetables, like musical canon 1 factory blasts. Next, waits 2 minutes, creating ebb instead of detonation. Committee members scoff coordination among competitors revolutionary. They table it, but you pocket a spare copy mental gears, turning perhaps lullabies scale beyond parlors. Noon's chiming mercifully, via dampened wall clock, adjourns the gathering. Decision deferred. A subcommittee will test hush horn in real conditions. Workers file out, some hopeful, others skeptical. You follow ears still ringing phantom shrieks. The river breeze smells of coal and possibility. Back at street level, a newsboy hawks special editions, silent whistle. Trials promise peace optimism already monetized. You drop a penny? The column rehashes committee bickering, adds a cartoon of a whistle wearing slippers. Public sentiment seems buoyant, so long as production quotas survive. On the tram home, you ponder human adaptability. We invent thunder to organize labor, then scramble to muffle it for dreams. Historians will argue for decades whether the industrial age forged sleeplessness by accident or design, but personal arithmetic is a simpler one. Decibel over tolerance and lettuce soup loses the duel. Clinic gates appear. Nurse Mayhew greets you beneath budding wisteria, the first scent today not mingled with soot. Inside, Abernathy quizzes you on committee theatrics, delighted at colored steam plumes. He sketches potential aroma whistles emitting lavender instead of sound factory halls perfumed like Rivington's salon. You suggest scented sirens might lure clerks to nap on the job. He concedes revisions needed. As sunset drops behind smokestacks, faint whistles pepper distance old models still unbridled. Yet you notice their tyranny feels softer after witnessing plans for hush. Hope itself lowers volume. You sip evening broth piano resumes, and the day's clang fades to historical footnote, like a gear slipping into smoother mesh. Blanket over shoulders, you imagine tomorrow's dawn erupting, not with banshee wails, but with pastel plumage of steam, signaling shift change. Workers might rise by color, not clamor. Households keep sleep. Lettuce retains honor. Perhaps improbable. Yet as chords drift, you allow optimism an armchair envisioning a city where industry and hush strike truce in G major andante. Sunset smolders behind Buckingham's slate rooftops. When a liveried courier arrives at the clinic, panting like a spaniel, 2 staircases past its limit. He thrusts a cream envelope sealed in crimson wax, a rampant lion clutching of all things a lettuce sprig. The inscription loops in urgent copperplate, by royal command, private audience discuss matters of nocturnal health. Dr. Abernathy all but levitates. You deputized as living case study are hustled into a brougham bound for St. James's Palace. Piano chords fade behind as wheels clatter over cobbles, your mind juggling visions of Tiara's protocol and salad-induced diplomacy. Lamplit streets funnel you toward Marlborough House, temporary residence of His Serene Highness, Prince Alfred Duke of Clarence nephew to Queen Victoria, and according to penny papers, Britain's most exhausted bachelor. Mainstream historical fact court circulars of the late 1880s regularly noted the prince's bouts of night-wandering insomnia that had palace valets pacing till dawn. Tonight, rumor swirls that his quest for shut-eye has veered into scandalous territory, clandestine crates of Lactica virosa, smuggled from Holland, hush money for grocers, even whispered barter with opium dens exchanging poppies for cabbage cousins. You disembark beneath a portico, where footmen cradle lanterns in gloved hands, muffling flame flicker to spare royal nerves. Inside corridors stretch like gilt intestines walls, papered in crimson damask, that seems to inhale and exhale candle glow. A steward in plum frock coat leads you past portraits of Hanoverian ancestors, who, judging by half-lidded stares, may also have suffered sleepless centuries. Joke one tiptoes by, you wonder if artistic style or chronic fatigue made every royal eyelid droop at the same languid angle. The steward halts before double doors, paneled with walnut marquetry intricate vines entwining, and yes, tiny carved lettuce leaves lurking among acanthus curls. Inside, the prince reclines on a chaise longue upholstered in midnight blue robe of silver brocade, flung carelessly open to reveal velvet slippers shaped like sleepy lions. A tasseled nightcap droops earthward, trailing enough silk cord to lasso a carriage. He waves languidly. Ah, the lettuce emissary arrives. He drawls voice, honeyed yet brittle. Silver tureens dot a low table. Chilled lettuce consommé, warm lettuce potage, lettuce gelée, shimmering like emerald-stained glass. Abernathy bows, launches into Doctrine Leaf, age 5-minute, simmer 0 salt. The prince sighs, "We have tried it all. My dreams still resemble a music hall brawl." He gestures to a nearby cupboard flung half open inside heads of romaine pile, like green cannonballs. Quirky tidbit earned a royal lettuce armory. Suddenly, a valet wheels in a gilded strongbox secured with 3 padlocks. Keys jangle, lids raised to reveal vacuum-sealed leaves imported. The prince confides from an alpine monastery said to irrigate crops with melted glacier water for purest serenity. He strokes a leaf as though petting an exotic bird. Historians still argue whether any such monastery existed, or whether palace purchasers fabricated provenance to justify invoices taller than Big Ben, but the mystique clearly comforts His Serene Highness. Abernathy proposes a live demonstration. A gold samovar warms, broth steam curls fragrantly, lacing candle halos with garden dusk. You ladle hand the cup. The prince inhales, sips, eyes flutter, yet moments later, pop wide owlish as if caffeine disguised itself in lettuce costume. He slumps. See betrayal in a bowl. Joke 2 flaps. Perhaps the leaves themselves panic under peerage pressure and refuse to perform. Attention shifts to an ornate rosewood upright piano perched beside a folding screen of peacock feathers. Abernathy requests permission to test the parlor piano prescription. The prince waves resignation. A palace organist, thin-spectacled, looking mildly terrified of his own cuffs, settles on the bench and launches into Chopin's Berceuse at whisper volume. Notes drift like soap bubbles bursting on damask. You watch the prince's shoulders unknot, head cocked, as if listening beneath water. Pulse seems to slow, hope flickers until a distant carriage wheel screeches outside, metallic cat scratch, undoing bars of progress. His eyes snap open, jaw tenses. Valets exchange glances. One produces a silver snuff box, filled not with tobacco, but powdered hops, another trendy sedative. The prince dabs nostrils, promptly sneezes, scattering hop dust like confetti over brocade. Fail. Abernathy whispers, Plan C, combined therapy. Music resumes. You hand over a slim vial, research-grade lutetium. 2 drops into the consommé, stir, gently, present anew. The prince eyes concoction, warily, then indulges. Within minutes, lashes hover at half-mast. A footman dims sconces, shadows stretch regal over parquet. Organist lifts left hand, lets chords breathe wider, slower, distant cousins of Hollis's lullaby. A mantel clock recently packed with velvet ticks, soft as a kitten's paw. The prince exhales, a feather slipping from his chest. Jaw slackens, goblet tips. Valet seizes it, mid-air, royal carpet spared. A muffled snore blossoms triumph in F-sharp minor. Abernathy beams. Yet as you all exhale, a page bursts in, bearing an illustrated scandal sheet. Hot off Fleet Street, presses prince's salad. Fiasco palace panics. Over green contraband, front page caricature. Shows the prince asleep atop a lettuce mountain, crown askew. Courtiers freeze. Organist hits wrong note, cringe audible. Joke 3 stumbles out Fleet Street, prince news faster than lettuce wilts. Steward confiscates paper, but damage done inside this hush. Gossip detonates silently. A duke mutters that continental ambassadors now nickname Alfred his royal saladness. A lady-in-waiting fears the queen will ban brassicas at Balmoral. Historians still argue whether such satire weakened monarchy or merely offered nocturnal entertainment for newsboys. Yet tonight, anxiety flickers alive again in Prince's brow. Abernathy rallies, Your Highness, permit us to frame this not as scandal, but scientific breakthrough. He sketches future headlines. Royal endorses lettuce. Cure nation sleeps easier. Valets nod. Damage control wheels spin. A private secretary vows to leak controlled interview with the Times, emphasizing rigorous trials, not vegetable dependence. Palatial PR is born. Meanwhile, you notice the prince's snores, steady, untouched by courtly fretwork. Leaf music ritual have finally braided a lullaby thick enough to bind dreams even against Fleet Street clamor. Valets drape a cashmere throw embroidered with tiny crowns, and yes, lettuce leaves over him. Chamber stirs less breaths measured. The scandal for now must wait for sunrise. A steward escorts you to a side parlor for gratitude, supper wafer-thin cucumber sandwiches, sans crust naturally, and a flute of barley water scented with mint. Tongue still tastes orchard green from earlier broth. Palate welcomes mild sweetness. Joke 4 over quota, but royal pardon granted if lettuce cures nobles, cucumbers may yet rescue Parliament. Before departure, Secretary presses a gilded invitation. Upon you attend tomorrow's discreet meeting with medical advisors to formalize royal endorsement. Abernathy's eyes glitter like lacquered peas. Outside dawn nibbles at Eastern Horizon Palace dome, blushing lettuce blush green. Carriage carries you back through thinning fog. Newspapers already hawked on corners proclaim scandal. Yet you cradle optimism once headlines tire of leafy puns. Solace might spread from palace to pub. For this night at least, a prince dreams untroubled amid hush of chords and chlorophyll. You lean into upholstery, inhale faint hop residue, and allow carriage rhythm to weave with memory of Berceuse until city lamps blur to sleepy constellations, guiding you toward your own returning pillow. You wake at 9:30 to thumps in the foyer crates stacked like precarious scones, each stamped Somnolence Road. Show invoice paid. Dr. Abernathy bursts in wearing a traveling cloak stitched with pockets for vials. He's giddy as a circus ringmaster. Fieldwork, my friend, we're bringing hush to the hinterlands. 10 minutes later, you're wedged beside him on a steam omnibus bound for Paddington destination Bath Bristol and beyond one-night-only lectures on modern methods of moonlit repose. The carriage ceiling rattles with rain. Passengers clutch umbrellas while Abernathy rehearses into your ear voice, pitched for maximum drowse. He's drafted slides, magic lantern plates, featuring enlarged lettuce leaves, graphs of heartbeats flattening like Devon beaches, and a photo of you asleep mid-experiment mouth ajar. Human element, he winks. Joke 1, you're about to become the poster child for elegant drooling. At Paddington Station, porters load gear, rosewater pillow mist atomizers, branded Dream Spritz velvet-eared stethophones for audience demos, and the Star Attraction portable keyboard kits. Each kit folds like a picnic basket. Inside nestles a 2-octave piano wired to clockwork bellows that puff soft harmonium tones when a crank spins. Abernathy calls them pocket pianos, carry a lullaby wherever insomnia ambushes. Quirky tidbits secured inventor claims inspiration struck while he napped beside a squeezed-shut accordion. The Great Western puffs westward. Through misted windows, fields unspool in damp greens. England looks permanently steeped in lettuce broth. Coach seats. Swish, you test a Dream Spritz rose chamomile faint whiff of witch hazel. A fellow traveler raises an eyebrow, then requests a sample for the children. Within minutes, half the carriage smells like botanical apothecary, and snores rise like pigeons under eaves. Mainstream fact slides in Victorian excursion trains often featured temperance refreshment rooms serving lavender water instead of gin-turning railways into accidental wellness retreats. Bristol's Corn Exchange hosts tonight's lecture. Gas jets hiss, benches creak under a mixed crowd, seamstresses with ink-smudged fingers, shipwrights smelling of tar, a dozing retired colonel clutching the program like surrender flag. Abernathy strides on stage. You man the magic lantern. First slide, colossal lettuce leaf veins, backlit emerald. Murmurs ripple, some gastronomic, some spiritual. He describes the doctrine of Latusham, its 5-minute simmer, zero-salt dogma. Giggles when he mentions gnome threshold dreams from under-concentrated batches. Callback earns nods. Pulse graph appears, next your soot strip from section 6. Audience gasps at peaks plateauing into calm plains. Abernathy lingers on that plateau. The hush we all deserve. A woman in row 3 visibly surrenders a yawn. Contagious sympathy strikes again. Now you wheel out a pocket piano. The crank whirs, bellows sigh, keys plink lullaby in G. Tone is reed sweet half music, half breeze through reeds. Children mimic cranking, mothers exchange hopeful glances. Abernathy narrates for the coal stoker working nights, for the nurse lodging above a public house. Music that weighs no more than a lunch pail. Joke 2, knead dough with one hand, churn lullabies with the other. Productivity meets peace. He invites volunteers. A burly dock worker steps up palms big as baritone horns. Dream spritz to pulse points, pocket piano in lap, lantern dims. Within 60 seconds, he nods off chin meeting chest like two long-lost friends. Crowd applauds in whispered thunder. Abernathy annotates historians still argue whether mechanical music lacks the soul of human touch, yet the heart, it seems, snores indiscriminately. Scholarship by demonstration. Intermission hawkers sell pamphlets, 10 home remedies for rest from lettuce to lullabies. Hot demand drains crates. You overhear a skeptic mutter that real sailors need rum, not roses. His mate counters rum wakes him at 3 a.m., demanding encore. Debate slips into the night like duel of tinctures. Meanwhile, children tug parents toward a stall where lavender bears wear tiny sailor caps. Marketing genius at work. Part 2. Spotlights aromatic pillow mists. Abernathy recounts medieval monks storing hop-filled cushions in scriptoriums to curb drowsy illuminators. Callback to Section 3's hop pillows. Slideshows illuminated manuscript margin where a monk doodled a yawning dragon. Hall chuckles. Mainstream fact number 2. 14th century Benedictines indeed used hops in bedding as mild sedatives. Monastery ledgers note decreased lantern accidents after adoption. Next slide, a comparison of city noise maps, London's whistles, versus Bath's carriage wheels. Abernathy proposes lullaby zones, where pocket pianos trade chords for color-coded flags during factory whistles echoing yesterday's hush horn debate. Audience leans in. Civic organizers jot furious notes. Dreams and industry might waltz after all. Time for the finale combined demonstration. You spritz air wind piano dim lamps. Abernathy recites a slow pulse poem, 6 syllables per breath, measured by metronome tucked in coat. Hall quiets until only tinny harmonium notes surf the poem's tide. In the back row, even the skeptic sailor sags, breath sinking to iambic pentameter. You catch a faint ferret lantern memory from Section 1, and nearly laugh joke 3 arrives unbidden. Somewhere anthropomorphic ferrets applaud this hush revolution. Lantern lights return. Those who drifted wake gently. Merch table mobbed dream spritz bottles clink. Pocket piano cranks spin for test drives. A governess buys 3 mists for nursery for self for mother-in-law. Within 20 minutes, inventory empties. Abernathy's ledger fattens like a satisfied cat. Yet he murmurs, humility funds funnel back into research. Perhaps aroma whistles for factories. Perhaps scholarship grants, because sleep, like education, must reach everyone. Back on the late train to London, you and Abernathy tally orders 42 mists, 17 pianos, 60 pamphlets, and 1 impromptu pledge from Bristol Mechanics Institute to host night schools for nap hygiene. Gas lamps flicker above. Passengers cuddle new lavender bears, car droning lullaby of steel wheels and distant rain. You spritz a cloud overhead. Rose chamomile drapes seats in invisible shawl. Soon the entire compartment slumps synchronized nods echoing last night's yawn party. Through window panes, semaphore signals flash red, then green railways own flags of wake and sleep. Fields slip by, erased to charcoal silhouettes. You ponder how lettuce soup began as curiosity in a clinic kitchen, and now rides rails as bottled fragrance and pocket song. Historians will debate whether commerce cheapens cure or spreads salvation, but for tonight, contented snorers argue in favor of franchising hush. London platforms loom. Porters unload empty crates. Conductor thanks Abernathy for quietest run in memory. Streets glisten from earlier showers. Fog tastes faintly of roses. Dream spritz leaking into night. Clinic doors open. Piano greets lavender bear waits. You tuck new pamphlet behind pillow pocket piano beside water glass. Grateful your traveling circus now folds small enough to fit bedside. Blanket rises, falls mimicking carriage sway, and you slide into sleep propelled by distant harmonium. Echo, rosewater breath, and the certainty that hush can indeed ride the rails. Morning finds you at the Royal Society of Arts ticket, in gloved hand for the much-whispered, somnolent inventions exposition. The vestibule buzzes like a beehive freshly doused in chamomile. Every booth promises to rock hum mist or otherwise bully the brain into switching off. You drift down an aisle where inventors straighten waistcoats polished by hope and sleepless nights, irony thick as clotted cream. First attraction. Professor Eldridge's clockwork cradle for adults. Imagine a mahogany canoe mounted on brass rocker arms gears, exposed like gilded entrails. At the turn of a crank, the entire contraption seesaws with nautical grace, designed to lull accountants as effortlessly as infants. You step in velvet-padded, unexpectedly roomy, and the professor cranks. The cradle glides. Stomach tides shift pleasantly. Joke 1 sloshes up. If this thing had wheels, London could replace omnibuses with nap buses and solve traffic and insomnia in one swoop. An adjacent placard cites a bona fide 1886 American patent for a somno chair with automatic oscillation, mainstream fact, proving grown-up rocking is no new folly. The professor claims his version improves safety. Earlier prototypes pitched sleepers onto parquet like sacks of potatoes. You nod gravely, deciding to skip the extreme crank setting. A crowd gathers around Madame Dupont's self-tucking coverlet. Cloth springs embedded in the hem deliver a gentle squeeze, cocooning users as if tucked by solicitous chambermaids. The Madame boasts it's modeled after the security swaddles used in French foundling hospitals. Historians still argue whether swaddling calms by recreating womb pressure or simply prevents sleepwalk benders across rooftops, but the sensation demonstrated on a volunteer looks equal parts comfort and surrender. Down the aisle, you spy the lavender fog lantern, a brass hurricane lamp whose chimney vaporizes essential oil cartridges when wick heat reaches dream temperature. Its inventor, a freckled chemist barely older than your pocket piano, insists one cartridge perfumes an entire ballroom without staining gowns. Quirky tidbit, a teeny gear inside, fans the vapor to spell cursive Z's in the air, the most literal sleep branding yet. Joke 2 flickers, if Abernathy had marketing like this, broccoli would be Britain's national sedative by now. Someone rings a handbell time for the keynote unveiling. Velvet curtains whisk apart to reveal Dr. Phineas Crowley's somnomatic rocker bed, a four-poster mounted on concealed railway springs. Atop the mattress reclines Crowley's volunteer, the retired colonel from Bristol, convinced to tour with the exhibition after that lullaby demonstration. Crowley flips a lever. Hidden cams convert gentle engine piston thrusts into a low oscillation. Bed and colonel coast like a barge on Thames slackwater. Onlookers ooh, one dowager fans herself, imagining marbled sleep. Crowley claims inspiration from long-haul sea voyages. Nobody sleeps like a sailor off watch. He cites a Royal Navy medical report from 1879 noting reduced insomnia during calm passages, another mainstream fact for the scrapbook. When someone asks about seasick side effects, he produces paper sick bags embossed with lullaby notes. Problem apparently solved. Across the hall, Mr. Higgs's metronome nightstand ticks inside a walnut box, syncing bedside oscillations by haptic pulse pads tucked under pillow corners. You lay fingers on one pad. It throbs faint 60 beats per minute pulses, coaxing your own ticker downward. Higgs brags sales to 2 asylums and an opera diva who times arias to resting pulse. Historians still argue whether external pacing can truly entrain cardiac rhythm, or if the placebo effect simply buys a one-way ticket to slumberland, yet the order book fattens nonetheless. You notice Abernathy glorying in the mechanical menagerie, jotting notes like a magpie snatching shiny ideas. He whispers that lettuce alone won't win minds. Gadgets provide theater. Soon he's bartering dream spritz for prototype blueprints. In return, Crowley demands a dozen lavender bears for his own showroom collaboration is the new sedation. Near noon, exhibitors break for luncheons of cucumber sandwiches, crustless natch, and steam-whipped lettuce meringues. Think sweet cloud, tinged faint salad. You sample. Texture surprises, flavor gentle as hint. Joke 3. Drifts at this rate. Queen's dessert menu may include spinach pavlova by Christmas. During the break, a bespectacled librarian displays the somnolent patent compendium, 1880, 1894, 300 pages thick. Flipping through, you find designs for a cat purr phonograph, a feather tickle eyelid shutter, and familiar acoustic pocket piano Mark Kers. Interesting precursor. Yours is Mark III. These pages prove an epidemic of ingenuity and desperation. Inventors chase Morpheus like detectives on foggy streets. Afternoon sessions open to public trials. You assist Abernathy running a booth labeled Broth and Balance. Visitors sip demitasses of Latusium reduction before stepping onto a gently rocking platform akin to a scale-less seesaw. A railway clerk burps soup, but reports knees less fidgety, while a seamstress dozes standing. Hatpins quivering like antennae. The synergy impresses onlookers, though one skeptic notes results arrive at soup pace not instantly. Patience Abernathy counters is itself a sedative that can't be bottled yet. Quirky tidbit number 2 surfaces at Mr. O'Malley's stall. A woolen nightcap fitted with counterweights. Nod forward, it pulls back, tipping head to neutral and preventing page-smacking faceplants beloved by insomniac readers. O'Malley demonstrates. The cap slaps him gently upright. On each feigned nod, audience cackles. He swears it saved his marriage fewer. Candle fires more mutual rem. Upstairs, society hatters already sketch silk versions. Late afternoon sees a debate panel, mechanics versus music. Where lies the future of sleep moderators seat Abernathy beside Crowley and Madame Dupont. Points volley leaf chemistry, oscillation, physics, swaddle psychology. Historians still argue whether a single unifying theory of sleep gadgets exists, or whether solutions remain as varied as dreams themselves. The colonel, newly awakened, declares any method working for artillery. Ears wins his vote. As judges tally innovation medals, you revisit Eldridge's cradle. Gears now gleam under gas lamp gold. You step in for second trial. Rocking melds with memory of Bristol pocket pianos and Palace lullabies, a symphony of hush across inventions and locales. You wonder if future children will inherit portable cradles, lavender lamps, metronome pillows, if hush will be standardized like postage stamps. Progress, after all, marches on rocking springs. Winners announced gold to Crowley's rockerbed silver to the lavender fog lantern bronze, shared among self-tucking coverlet and pocket piano Abernathy cheers. Exhibitors applaud. Crowd disperses, buoyed by possibility, and by the sleep debt they can't wait to repay using fresh purchases. Evening fog gathers as you exit, with Abernathy arms laden with sample lavender cartridges and cradle blueprints folded like treasure maps. Gaslights halo sidewalks. In distant alley, a factory whistle whimpers, maybe testing quilted muzzle. The city's still noisy, but imagination tonight roars louder contraptions, patents lullabies converging into a dawn where insomnia meets its eccentric match. Back at the clinic, the grandfather clock stands proud yet subdued. Its tick syncs with new metronome nightstand, gifted by Higgs. You load a lavender cartridge into Crowley's sample fog lamp set pocket piano atop dresser, and imagine a future bedroom humming like miniature expo. Quilt swaddles shoulders, bed unpowered, yet memories rock you gently. Pillow yields, eyelids flutter. Gears of mind slow, click coast a human cradle clockwork optional. Twilight stains the clinic window's aubergine when Dr. Abernathy strides in waving half a dozen medical journals like victory flags. The great soup versus Sonata skirmish has erupted, he announces, eyes aflame. You follow him to the library, a mahogany cavern lined floor to ceiling with bound volumes whose spines gleam like orderly constellations. Long study tables await under green glass lamps. The air smells of dust leather and a faint afterglow of lettuce. Abernathy spreads papers across a blotter. Headlines battle for attention. The Lancet runs vegetable infusions, nutrient or nonsense, while the British Medical Journal counters with auditory entrainment and cardiac quietude. Margins crawl with editor replies. Footnotes duel like foils. Tonight, you and Abernathy will draft rebuttals before editions close at dawn. Sleep sciences may be in their infancy, but its scholars keep newborn hours. He points to a bar graph depicting pulse rate declines in 60 patients treated with lettuce broth. 5 neat columns dip into tranquility. Mainstream fact, he murmurs, indeed, the study comes from Guy's Hospital. Presented at the 1893 Royal Medico-Botanical Society. Still footnotes question placebo controls, calling sample size leaf thin. Joke 1 flutters perhaps the real sedative was boredom wrought by clinical decor. Across the blotter sprawls an article by Dr. Cecilia Hargreaves, pianist physician. Extraordinaire. Her paper claims Chopin nocturnes reduce cortisol by 23% in insomnia sufferers. A penciled caricature shows a treble clef strangling a lettuce leaf, anonymous satire from some mischievous typesetter. Abernathy snorts. Rivalry has grown so fierce, even notation and salad have graduated to cartoon warfare. A knock Nurse Mayhew delivers midnight cocoa and a stack of correspondence. Among them lies a telegram from Vienna. Professor Colereader insists lettuce soup is culinary charlatanry, championing instead low-frequency cello drones. He challenges Abernathy to publish his raw data. Abernathy pencils, challenge accepted, but you caution diplomacy. Scholarly debate should lull, not inflame. Historians still argue whether polemics spur progress or simply pad page counts, yet subscription numbers cure whenever quarrels heat up. You draft a reply framing soup and sonata as complimentary, not combative. To bolster Abernathy, cites a 1891 French study where patients sipping Laitue potage while listening to Debussy fell asleep 16 minutes faster than either remedy alone. Voila détente in a bowl and a bar. Still you slip in a gentle jab. No evidence suggests cello vapors can be sipped. Joke 2 lands with polite thud. Lamplight pools amber illuminating dust motes that drift like sleepy comets. Quills scratch, pages turn. Abernathy pauses at a fringe pamphlet from the Mesmeric Society, touting hypnotic lettuce gaze. Therapists allegedly dangle cabbage leaves before patients swinging them like pendulums. Quirky, yes. Effective, doubtful. Yet you tuck the pamphlet aside, fodder for tomorrow's sidebar piece, titled Oddments of the Sandman. Near 2:30, Mayhew returns bearing a tray of rival remedies, a demitasse of lukewarm lettuce broth, and a wax cylinder recording of soft piano. She proposes your own mini-trial. You check pulse, steady 72. First, a sip of broth. Earthy warmth seeps downward. Next, you don stethophone ear cups linked to cylinder. A lullaby of muted arpeggios trickles in. Pulse dips to 68. Mayhew grins, scribbles results, and affixes them atop your letter as fresh evidence. Anecdotal, yes, but editors love a hook. Outside, fog fingers the window panes. Gas lamps blur halos through dew. Abernathy drafts section headings, phytonutrient pathways, auditory entrainment, ritual synergy. He mutters that rituals, not variables, knit mechanisms together. You suggest an analogy soup is the mattress music, the quilt neither alone ensures comfort. He beams inks it in. Joke 3 sneaks onto margin add lavender bear for decorative pillow. Suddenly, the grandfather clock booms a muffled 3. From the corridor arises a faint debate mirror. Two junior doctors spar over phonograph tempo, each armed with stopwatches. You eavesdrop. One cites Galton's law of averages. The other brandishes a lettuce spoon like a baton. Competition grows so animated, Nurse Mayhew threatens to revoke cocoa privileges. Historians still argue whether late-night caffeine or intellectual zeal fuels such vigils, but your own drowsy lids vote for the former. Back at Blotter, you insert a footnote on bromide-assisted piano sessions, a Bart's Hospital case series where trace doses extended sleep cycles without hangover. Data modest, yet bridging chemicals and chords, strengthens the compromise narrative. Abernathy adds a flourish. The future of sleep lies not in choosing sides, but in orchestrating gentleness. Words glow like lullaby lyrics. Quills finally still. Draft clocks ends at 1,200 words tight, courteous punctuated with olive branch citations. Mayhew sets sealing wax. You stamp envelopes with Clinicsil lettuce cameo. Courier waits yawning into scarf. Manuscripts dispatch east to the Lancet west to BMJ across channel to Paris. By sunrise, typesetters will wrangle your words into columns read by every bleary physician from Whitechapel to Warsaw. Work complete, you and Abernathy lean back. Library. Hush deepens. Even the lamps seem to dim in solidarity. Broth dregs cool. Phonograph drum spin slows to silent halt. You rub gritty eyes writing about sleep proves exhausting sport. Abernathy yawns, grandly declares war temporarily won tomorrow, they'll argue. But tonight, at least, we have written peace. He reaches for the lantern knob. Just before darkness, he muses that future textbooks may quote tonight's compromise. Perhaps students will chuckle at lettuce leaves dueling with nocturnes, yet practice combined therapy without question. If debates birth lullabies, contention has purpose. Lights snuffed you, navigate corridor by braille of wainscot molding. Each footstep echoes ideas, just penned soup ladles, clinking harmonies, pianos pouring broth. Bed accepts you. Covers gather like bipartisan coalition. In stillness, pulse hums. Faint waltz, learned from earlier cylinder belly tingles, residual chlorophyll. Rival remedies entwine inside you, no longer competitors, but dance partners swirling dusk to dawn. Somewhere beyond shuttered panes presses thunder-spitting pages of fresh argument. London will awaken to headlines shouting, "Soup, symphony peace bill," while morning commuters sip tea, perhaps hum nocturnes, maybe order lettuce for supper. The debate continues, but for now ink dries soup, cools piano sleeps, and you drift smiling at the thought that even scholarly skirmishes can cradle weary minds when night grows long. The library lamps burn low, their green glass shades now dusky halos when Dr. Abernathy finally shoos you from his sight. Enough words go test the theories he insists. Half grin, half yawn. He hands you a travel flask of last night's premium broth, stoppered with a cork that smells faintly of pipe tobacco and parsley. Cloak-slung ribboned slippers swapped for street boots. You step into the corridor, where the clinic's candles gutter in synchronized fatigue, each flame bowing goodbye, like actors at final curtain. The grandfather clock offers a single thick tick, as though nodding assent to your departure, and then surrenders to hush. Outside London hovers at that in-between hour when night has given up, but day has not yet claimed the keys. Gas lamps hiss a little louder, proud to have made it to dawn shift, while the first streaks of pearl gray stroke rooftops. Fog thinner now rolls like crumpled tulle across the Strand. You set off toward home, flask pocket, warm against your ribs, the piano's fading arpeggio ghosting with each footfall. Early risers appear in tableau, a milkman rattling bottles as carefully as a jeweler with diamonds. A newsboy folding stacks of fresh papers, already trumpeting the soup sonata truce. And a seamstress yawning so wide you fear her jaw will unhinge, only to remember contagious yawns still reign. Joke one winks you half expect Lord Rivington to pop from a doorway counting each public yawn for his tally book. You pass a corner bakery where a new sign advertises lettuce-infused breakfast rolls, nap between bites. Inside, a baker dusts trays with flour and quirky tidbit, unlocked a pinch of powdered hops for depth of dream. He offers you one fresh from the oven. The roll's center steams green-edged. You bite, discovering it tastes like a garden decided to dress up as pastry. You pocket a second for later smug in knowledge that Insomnia has unwittingly sparked a culinary renaissance. Across the way, 2 lamplighters extinguish the last flames with brass snuffers. One remarks that the Electric Lighting Act of 1882 mainstream historical fact is replacing his profession one street at a time, yet he admits electric bulbs can't compete with quiet candles. Filament glare rattles the eyes. You sympathize, flush with newfound respect for dimness as medication. He salutes you with his snuffer rod. You toast him covertly with the soup flask. Your path skirts Covent Garden, where greengrocers unpack crates of emerald leaves. Lettuce, yes, but also spinach sorrel purslane. 2 porters joke that last week's lettuce shortage sent society ladies into full-blown panic, one even attempting to bribe a gardener for midnight harvest. Joke 2 imagines black market dealers in trench coats whispering, "Psst, crisp romaine 5 shillings a head." Farther on, St. Paul's Dome emerges silhouette soft against mauve sky. Bells will toll soon, though rumor says felt pads may be fitted to hush peals before matins. Historians still argue whether such tinkering shows reverence for worshippers' sleep or sacrilege against tradition. You pause on the cathedral steps, tilting ear for distant factory whistles. Instead, you catch only an abbreviated puff, perhaps a hush horn prototype singing its owl whistle lull. Progress kneels before pillows at last. Your own eyelids droop, lulled by slow-walking meditation and residual broth warmth. You uncork the flask. Perfume of garden rain spirals up. 3 small sips coat throat slide, belly bloom calm. The horizon blushes persimmon. A postal clerk pedals by whistling the piano theme, penned by Edwin Hollis. Proof melodies, once private, now cycle streets. Near home you encounter an alley, stray a soot-smudged cat, curled on a cabbage crate, purring metronome steady. You crouch share final soup drops on finger for it to sniff. Cat blinks gratitude, curls tighter, returns to dream of endless cream. Joke 3 whispers Abernathy could publish a paper on feline lettuce acceptance and spark catnap clinics by Christmas. Door unlocked, boots off. You slip into familiar room. First light fingers curtains. Dust motes dance like tiny paper lanterns. You set flask on sill, half roll on bedside, neither quite awake nor asleep. Suspended in hush, stitched by soup aromas, cathedral silhouettes, and faint memory of a cradle bed rocking in some expo hall. The city outside yawns wider, but you armed with leftovers of vegetable lullaby, close eyes, and bargain for just a little more dream before breakfast. And now, with the first proper daylight gathering in soft pools around your bed, let every thought slow to the gentlest drift. Picture the streets you've just walked, cobbles washed clean by dawn mist, lamplighters sliding their snuffers home, and windows glowing with the palest apricot light. Imagine those sounds receding, the distant carriage clop dissolving into steady waves. The muted whistle, a single breath on the breeze. The bakery door clicking shut after its final morning delivery. Feel how each small noise grows softer, as though padded by velvet, then softer still until it becomes part of the hush itself. Let your eyelids rest heavy, the muscles behind them loose and lazy, like curtains settling after a breeze. Notice the faint, earthy scent of lettuce broth lingering in the air, cool green comforting a reminder that nature, too, has its lullabies. From somewhere deep inside, the echo of a slow piano chord uncurls and fades, leaving a smooth, resonant silence that cradles your heartbeat. Breathe into that space. Each inhale, feathers cool across the back of your throat. Each exhale releases tension from jaw, shoulder, spine, and all the way down to the soles of your feet. If thoughts drift in lists, worry, street chatter, picture them as tiny paper boats crossing a moonlit pond. Watch them glide by without chasing each one carrying its cargo off into the silver distance. The water settles smooth again, reflecting only calm sky. Allow your body to sink mattress beneath you, warm and steady blankets, a gentle weight drawing you toward stillness. There is no schedule now, no committee quarrels, no brass muzzles or midnight lectures. Only quiet breath-eased heartbeat and the safe, slow tide of sleep pulling you farther from the shore of waking. Float there untroubled until dreams find you.